Hey everybody, welcome to Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Who's on? Hey Patricia. Ready to ride. I like it. I will be too shortly. Come on. What time we got? 7? 4 people. We scare some people away from Monday. 7 o'clock. All right. Let's go. I think it's 45 minutes today, so we'll get started. It's a good day to be on the trainer because I don't think the weather is very good, right? A couple things. I should start my combi trainer. Thing number 1. Sometimes you might be wondering where you can find a link to these, and if you're a person that I've been loading workouts into Training Peaks, if you go on like today's bike ride and you click into the workout and you see description, at the top is the link. So that might prove helpful for some of you. So today's workout is one of my favorites because we're going to spend time below, at, and above race pace. And I'll talk about the differences between half Ironman and Olympic distance race pace. Olympic distance can be more intense because it's shorter. It depends a lot on how you train as well. If you train at those paces, efforts, it's easier to maintain them in the race. It's also easier to identify them, which is what's great about a workout like this, is it helps you identify them. So for any race, if your goal is to finish the race, then your intensity is going to be lower. In fact, if you say my goal is to finish the race, then typically your intensity, if you want to be on the safer side, is to keep it aerobic, meaning you can have a conversation, you're not breathing that hard. That's an exercise intensity you can go for hours. So if you keep it there, you're in no danger of not completing the race. When you go above that is when your performance gets faster, but it's also where it can make it more difficult to sustain on a longer effort. But again, if you train for it, then you're going to have a better idea. And have podium, of course. You need to train hard and you need to race hard to get on the podium. So generally speaking, half Ironman would be considered at the lower end, is you have an aerobic zone, and the upper end of that aerobic zone is generally the low end of your half Ironman effort. Okay, so the upper end of your aerobic zone is sort of the bottom of a half Ironman effort. The upper end of half Ironman effort is into that between moderately hard and hard. It's into that uncomfortable kind of riding. That's an effort with training that people can sustain, right? And you might also toggle between that uncomfortable and slightly uncomfortable in that range. And one of the ways to test it is especially your brick workouts, right? But the more we spend time with below, at, and above, the more it helps us figure out what's appropriate during the race. So we're going to do that today. And when you're out riding or today, you just want to think about, is this the pace that I could maintain for 3 hours or 3.5 hours? Or how much of that 3.5 hour bike ride can I be uncomfortable in and still finish the bike ride well enough to go out and have a good run, right? Maybe it's mostly aerobic, but you have several periods of 10 to 20 minutes where you go slightly harder. Again, that all comes back to training. So in an Olympic distance, because it's shorter, and again, depending on how you train, if your longest bike ride ever is 20 miles and you haven't really done any speed work, then you need to do that whole bike ride in that upper aerobic zone. Even that's generally considered below Olympic distance intensity. It's just because you haven't trained for that, right? You haven't trained up to 25 miles. But if you've done 35-mile bike rides, 40-mile bike rides, and you want to go a little faster and you've done work where you're working hard, you can ride that whole course in that harder breathing, where it requires concentration, where your body says you want to slow down. You can ride the whole thing like that. And again, in your brick workouts, if you do those bike rides where you're pushing yourself, there's a little, I don't know, what do you call it? It's a acronym that one of the coaches uses called ABP, which stands for always be pushing. And when you're out there riding, especially when we're doing this stuff here, you get into that place where you feel the tension in the pedals and it feels like you're pushing. So that's what ABP is, always be pushing, right? So that just describes an intensity where you're just pushing, pushing, pushing. Not to the point where you can't continue to push, but constantly pushing. So another way you think of it as best sustained pace, right? And it's like, what is the time that you want to carry that for? So if you're doing an Olympic distance, you're below, if you really say you want to go as fast as you can and you're really training for it, below Olympic distance pace is sort of the middle to upper end of the half Ironman, right? So your middle to upper end of the half Ironman is the low end of your Olympic distance, and your Olympic distance effort is, at that top end of the half Ironman. And if you're more elite / have done more training, you can go into that, pushing into the hard zone for an Olympic distance, right? Because it depends too how long you're out there. If you're, the pros are out there 2 hours or less, so for them it's an all out all the time. But if you're out there for 4 hours, then that's more bordering towards aerobic rather than all out. So that's that. I was looking for a lesson, and I came upon one that was a good one. It's lesson number 53. Do some quick bike maintenance. Taking 60 seconds to wipe down your bike after your ride is a fantastic habit to develop. Keep your chain clean and lubed on a regular basis. Check your chain periodically for excessive wear and replace it before it gets overstretched. Check your tires for cuts and embedded debris. Make sure your brake pads are not worn and are aligned properly. So the other day, my bike wasn't shifting as smoothly as I wanted to. And so I just took my toothbrush and citrus oil, did a quick clean of the chain, put some lube on it, and boom, it fixed the shifting. So whenever I ride outside, that's a habit that I have of wiping down my bike with citrus oil. Gives you a good chance to check your bike. If you haven't already, make sure you switch into a little bit harder gear. Increase your warm up. And then you can buy, for $10, you can buy a chain checker. Just put it on your chain and see if it's stretched. Because when your chain gets too stretched, it starts to wear out your back cogs. And if you let it go too long, you need to replace the cog set and the chain. So instead of looking at like $35, $50 for the chain, you're looking at $100, $120 to replace everything. So, but just getting in the habit of cleaning your chain, a clean chain makes your bike shift so much more smoothly. So if you're having shifting issues, that's probably the first place to start. And then you might need a small tune-up. Okay, so that's that. For me, I change my back wheel when I ride inside and outside, and so that's always the opportunity to check the brake pads, make sure that they're working. To the coffee trainer. So we're going to go in 30 seconds. We're going to do some 30-second high cadence drills. All right, find the gear that you want to use for your first 30 seconds of high cadence. I'm going to go in 3 seconds. Okay, ready? Here we go. So I'm in slightly of an easier gear for the first one. And then the second one, I'm going to do a harder gear. When you really get, going like above 100, you really start to see how challenging it is to maintain your form. Okay, recover. So if that felt good, you can stay there. If you want to go one gear harder, you can go there. You can notice that you're going, when you do go one gear harder, you probably have to work a little bit harder. It won't be quite as easy to keep your cadences high, but that can be a good thing too. Force you to work a little harder, but maybe you want to stay where you were. We have 4 more, so okay, ready? Here we go, number 2. Three seconds. 2, recover. So what I noticed there is starting in a gear harder, it took a little lag time to get my cadence up. And so this is where, if you notice that, you may want to begin in one gear easier, first 5-10 seconds to get your cadence up, and then shift. Keep your cadence in that harder gear. It's a good lesson in why, like when we're trying to accelerate on the road. Okay, we're going in 2 seconds. Ready? Here we go. When we're trying to accelerate on the road, it can be good to shift to a slightly easier gear first, just to get your cadence up, and then shift to a harder gear and maintain your cadence. You're going to have a much smoother, faster acceleration than if you just go to a hard gear and try to start pedaling. Even though that's where you eventually want to end up, you want to get there by going to an easier gear, higher cadence, and then down. Okay, recover. Tell you what, let's try that. We're going to do it the first time. I want you to experience how difficult it is. So before we start, switch 2 to 3 gears harder. And then I want you to see how challenging it is to get your cadence high. Okay, ready? Let's switch 3 gears, 2 or 3 gears. Okay, here we go, 30 seconds. You can even see my knees, how slowly it takes for them to get up to speed, right? We're 10 seconds in, my cadence is still like in the 70s, 80s. Probably in 30 seconds won't even ever get them up to like 95. Okay, relax. Yeah, so that basically served as more of a strength builder for me. So easy gear. Now, I want you to, in this easy gear, or maybe even one gear easier, get the cadence up. You'll see it comes up really quickly. 5 seconds in, you can start shifting gears. Maybe 1 gear, 2 gear, maybe 3 gears, but then try to keep that cadence. Okay, we're going on 4 seconds. Here we go. Ready? You know, I already see my legs, how quickly, 2 seconds in, they're at that cadence. So now I start switching 6 seconds, 7 seconds. I'm at that cadence already. Now I just have to maintain it. There we recover. So you can see totally different experience, right? The other thing is, what you'll see a lot of times out on the road, when somebody wants to get on it, they stand up, because that really, standing up is like, gives you that extra power. So if you're in the same gear, standing up will be somewhat the equivalent of going to an easier gear. And then when you sit down, you have that power. I'm gonna give you an extra like 15 seconds, and we're gonna start. So 3 minutes below your race pace, 3 minutes at, 3 minutes above. In the at period, just ask yourself, could I maintain this for my race? All right, you guys ready? 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and then 3 minutes recovery. Here we go, 3 minutes below. So get your cadence up. Think about the intensity. Think about the perceived exertion that you want to hit. I'm going to some more inspiring music. All right, one more minute here. Pay attention to your breathing rate. In all of these efforts, you might, like I just switched to one gear easier. I just wanted to bring my cadence up. A little bit of a micro recovery. So you might toggle between gears. You don't have to stay in the same gear. All right, we're going in 12 seconds. Now we're gonna be doing 3 minutes at your race pace. Ready? Here we go. Go. So a couple ways to bring up your intensity is to bring up your cadence, especially if it's below 90 in the same gear. And then if you still want to bring up your intensity, you can shift gears. So we're going to be doing 2 sets of these. So 9-minute blocks, 3-minute recovery, repeat. You know, I'm in that always be pushing, like where my brain wants to tell my body to relax, or vice versa. And then the brain has to fight back. Say things like, you got this. Mm. 45 seconds, and then we go 3 minutes harder. I love doing these efforts out on the road. I'll typically do them longer, like 10 minutes at race pace, 5 minutes above. You could do like 10 minutes below, 10 minutes at, 5 above. I'll even get up to where I do for the longer races, like 70.3, 20 minutes at race pace, maybe 10 minutes above. All right, here we go, last 3 minutes, ready? So wherever you're at, just make sure you go a little harder. This is where if you have like a lap button and you have like your lap speed or lap distance, or it will give you a clue of if you're achieving what you want. You can also obviously go by feel. So my goal for Lava Man was to ride at 200 watts. The year before I did, I think like 190, 192. So right now, when I'm thinking I want to be above that, I'm looking at my power and it's 210. So I'm happy with that, even though it hurts. But you don't need power. You could say, okay, my average speed is 18.6. So in this harder effort, I want my average speed to be 18.8. So that obviously requires the speed sensor on your bike, but those are cheap. You know, it has to integrate with your computer. Your computer might already have a speed sensor. It has to be on the back wheel. And now I can see in my talking, my cadence has dropped, my average power has dropped to 197. So I have 1 minute and 5 seconds to remedy that. Spending time above your race pace really helps you hone in on what race pace is. For one, it also makes you stronger. It makes race pace feel a lot easier. And then it actually elevates over time what your race pace is because of getting stronger. Okay, now I'm back to 205. My cadence is 85, so a little bit lower, but it's actually what it usually ends up being in a triathlon. 10 seconds, 86 cadence. 5 seconds. All right, recover. Whew. Find an easy gear, very little to no pedal tension. So one thing, you probably feel this, riding at these harder efforts, I feel is a lot more taxing on the trainer. Like, for example, my cadence is higher when I ride outside typically. I also notice that I can maintain like what is race pace for longer periods on the road. So for like say an Olympic distance, I would probably start off with like, if you're truly starting off, probably start off with this 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes below, at, and above. But I would go to 5 minutes of each. And then from there, I would increase the first two. So I would increase the below race pace to 10 minutes, at race pace to 10 minutes, but then keep the above race pace to 5 minutes. You generally want to keep, because it's a higher intensity, the above race pace to much shorter than at race pace. Ideally, we just want to teach ourselves what it's like riding at race pace. And then you want to have some work above that. So on some of the half Ironman workouts, again, the overall intensity is lower. I might do 20 minutes at race pace, 10 minutes above, and then like 10 minutes recovery, and then depending on how far I'm riding, could be 10 minutes below race pace, could be 20 minutes below race pace. And then like if I'm going on a 3-hour ride, I might do blocks of 40 minutes. So if I do 3 of those, that's 2 hours. So, maybe half hour warm up, 3 blocks of 40 minutes. It's towards the end of the training. 30 seconds. So get toweled off, get some hydration. If you guys have speed, if you have the ability to do a lap split and see your average speed, or if you can just look at your distance and see how much distance you cover, then you can use that to compare your efforts. Okay, ready? We're going. It's going to be below race pace. Here we go. Especially after doing that last hard one, this really doesn't feel so bad. So maybe just a slight bit of labored breathing, but below uncomfortable. On these lower intensity ones, really should have no excuse for not having our cadence at 90. Whew, I'm sweating good. We haven't even got to the 6 minutes coming up. All right, we're going in 12 seconds, 3 minutes at race pace. Ready? Here we go. So now I say that toggling between gears, also standing up every once in a while is a good way of, very similar to toggling between gears. You notice that when I do stand up, it's just for like 4 pedal strokes. So right now I'm playing around with my gearing because I'm right at the watts I want to hit when my cadence is a little low. So I go to a slightly easier gear, which brings my cadence up, and then I'm just watching my power numbers, because if they drop too much, I either got to really push on my cadence or go to a harder gear. But, and again, you can look at average speed. And if your average speed is just a tenth below, you maybe go to a harder gear to bring it up, keeping an eye on your cadence. And then the other thing I'm asking myself is, how does this feel? Feels all right. I mean, it's hard, but it's uncomfortable, I should say. But this is where I would race Lava Man at. So I also do quite a bit of work in these ranges, like throughout the winter time when we're on our team bike rides. Say it's a 2-hour ride or a 20-mile ride. I spend different times, periods of time, in my different intensities, rather than just riding 20 miles without a plan. Okay, we're going in 2 seconds, last 3 minutes. Here we go. So I was 2 watts below, and I was at 88 cadence. Last 3 minutes. Well, really only 2:30. The tricks that you have to play on your mind. Effort-wise, this is solidly above what I would race at. And it's only 10 watts difference. The heart rate is 4 beats higher, 5 beats higher. Good example how it doesn't take much to either be right in your zone or above it. Same way in running, 5-10 seconds average mile pace It's a huge difference. That's why when we race, we usually go out too fast. Like if you're running a 5K and you're 5 seconds above average pace you want to run at, by mile 3 you're going to be hurting. Where if you would just have run 5 seconds per mile slower, you'd end up having a stronger race, which is kind of hard to believe, but it's true. Wow, 55 seconds. And then you're done. Push it. Seconds. 12. 5. Ooh. All right, recover. Good job. Whew. I'm sweating like crazy. Nice job, everyone. I'm sure you were breathing hard and sweating too, even though I can't see you. Whew. So one note about using average speed on a bike ride is that it's always lower, because every time you have to stop, that drops your average. So if you're out riding, and this is where if you have a computer that has lap splits, it's easier. But you want to look at what is your average speed in a section of road that's no stop signs, no stop lights, right? So you can maintain. The other thing that's going to affect average speed on the road is what is the terrain. You know, if it's mostly downhill, you're going to have a very high average speed, even though your output was relatively low. If it's a hilly course, you're going to have a low average speed, right? So if you want to look at, in comparison to a race, the more you can find a course that has a section of road that you don't have to stop in, that's a great place to do some work at race pace, right? Because the terrain's similar. And so if you're, let's say only thing you have to go on is speed. Well, in that section of road, what is your speed? And how does it feel? So you have to take that into consideration, because like even myself, when I go on a normal bike ride, my average speed is oftentimes below 15 miles an hour, even though large sections will be, 19, 20 miles an hour. But all the stop signs and stop lights, especially, in a place like Seattle, where the first, it takes me 30 minutes from my house to get to Leshai. So that's, you know, somewhat on the Burke Gilman Trail, stop signs, a lot of areas, you know, where I have to slow down or stop. And so the average speed just plummets. That's why I never, like, for myself or an athlete, I never look at what their average speed is for a workout, because the data is too incomplete. But if I can drill into a section and know what kind of effort they're at, and that tells me more. Probably got 5 minutes left. So those are things you can use when you're out on the road without buying a power meter, which is kind of expensive. And outside, because the road undulates, it's much harder to keep your power stable anyway. But like using, say, lap power is, you know, helpful, but it's definitely not needed, I guess, is my point. Another way to do it, this is the way Dave Scott, when he started in triathlon, he lived in Davis, California, which is farmlands. And so it's very much like Chico, where I went to school. You know, these big 2 miles down a road, take a right, 2 miles. Yeah, these big square plots of farmland. But if you make right turns, you don't really have to stop. And so the way he trained, and this was, you know, 1984 or something. So, you know, he had a bike computer and a Timex watch. But he would ride the same courses and he would time himself. So essentially a benchmark workout, right? So he would do a loop on a road and he would get his time. And next week he would go out and he would try to do that loop faster. Right? And so that would be another way, essentially a benchmark workout. But, you know, another way, like Mercer Island's a great place, 10 miles one way. You know, most of the time, unless you get stopped by a school bus or construction, no stopping. And so you can just ride that and say, okay, I'm going to ride this at race pace. How does it feel? There's some sections of roads, smaller sections like Cedar Grove Road is 3 miles long. You know, it can be a little tricky. Snoqualmie Valley has some roads that have some length to them. But, you know, it's tricky around Seattle area to find a road that's even 5 miles long. But maybe you have like a 2 mile section of road and you just use that, you know, and then you have a short break and then you have another 2 mile section. I feel like that's more common around here. So you can break it up that way. You know, just knowing that if you want good data, it has to come in those clean sections of road. Let's do one of those spin-ups. So give them kind of an easy to moderate gear. Have your cadence be kind of lowish, 80. And then let's just slowly start going a little faster. A little faster. A little faster. And then let's get to this place where we're kind of spinning out of control, right? Way above 100. Try to minimize your body rocking. See if you can maintain this super fast cadence. Okay, now let's switch one gear harder. You can see your legs slow down. Keep the cadence up. All right, go ahead and shift back to an easier gear. Let your legs slow down. So one thing I want to do, and maybe you guys can send me messages, I would like to do like a 10-minute block, a benchmark workout, if you will, so that you can begin to see your improvement. So what you would need is the ability to track either your distance or your speed. So you need a bike computer that can do that. So my question to you is, when you're riding, can you either see your speed? Can you see distance? Even if you have the ability to lap splits, even better. But if you don't, we could do our warm up. You could stop. You could save that file, that workout. You could reset your computer. And then when we do our 10 minutes, we can start fresh. And that way, if you're just looking at speed or average speed for that ride, you'll see it. Okay. So anyway, we're done. So I'd like to do that in the next 2 weeks. So if you guys could just send me a quick note, if you have the ability to do that. That way, when we redo it, you can show yourself that you're improving. And sometimes just seeing that you're improving just provides an incredible amount of motivation to keep going. So that's what I have for you today. Thanks for joining. Have a good one.